today, as we continue this series, we started last week. I want to continue that conversation. And so here's how this conversation begins. I am Dr. Michelle, and I am here today to help you to assess if your consciousness has the flu or not. And in that regard, we're going to take a little bit of a look at our last visit that we had together. We took a moment and established, oh, my pen is upside down. We established consciousness as the entirety of our thinking, our emotional body, our decisions that we've made, and that all of those things are active and a part of the experience, the manifestation of our life, that our consciousness contributes to our life. And we talked about building a strong consciousness immune system with proactive practices to support us in having a stronger immune system so that as we encounter challenges and encounter viruses of thought and mind, that we are more immune. But occasionally, we might actually get the flu. And when that happens, in consciousness or otherwise, we get to take a look at the symptoms and try to assess what's going on. And so as your doctor today, that's what I am here to help you do. Now, I did a lot of research about the flu. And there are a lot of things that indicate what the symptoms might be from the actual physical flu. And so when you go to a doctor, they might ask you about things such as you're having pain or a cough or chills or dehydration, fatigue, fever, a loss of appetite, congestion, runny nose, sneezing, congestion in the lungs, and chest pressure, all sorts of things like that. And there's lots of ways that a doctor can test to see if we have the actual flu, lots of ways that they can examine us. So I'm going to give you a little examination today to see if any of you might actually have the consciousness flu. And one of the ways that they assess congestion is to listen to our hearts. And when I received my Doctor of Divinity, I was given this handy-dandy stethoscope. It does listen to the actual heart, but this is a very special one because it can hear what we're thinking about. It can hear consciousness. And so I'm going to use it for the first time ever here at Mile High Church today to just see if anybody here might have the consciousness flu. So, all right. Oh yeah, there's someone in the back. They're thinking, where's Dr. Roger? Yeah. Talk to me later. Talk to me later. Okay. What else have I got? Oh, Jeanette, you didn't leave your oven on. It's okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. She's obsessing about that oven too. Yeah. Oh, my mom's here today. What's mom thinking about? Chai tea latte. Yeah. Again. Yeah. Oh, my husband, my beloved husband. What's he thinking about? Yeah. Typical. Yeah. Corgi dogs. He's obsessed with corgi dogs. If you're friends with him on Facebook, you know this, that he's, Dr. Barry's still out. Let's see what Dr. Barry's thinking about. Is this thing working? No, I got nothing. Yeah. Well, he is kind of a Zen guy. I guess that makes some sense, you know. So, but wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if we had a little instrument that could assess our consciousness and say, okay, this is what's bothering you. This is what's at the core of your thought belief system, your emotional body that's keeping you from experiencing the good that you desire. And what we know is that as of now, and except for this, no one has discovered that wonderful instrument. So we have to look at symptomology, and that's what we do. That's the science part of religious science. We get to look at symptomology, just like a physical doctor would look at the symptomology of our body to assess if we're experiencing physical flu. So to assess if we're experiencing consciousness flu, there's some key symptomology, symptoms that we can take a look at. And so they include the fact that our body, before I go into that symptomology, I want to talk about something really brilliant that Reverend Josh reminded me of recently. Homeostasis, the reason that we can assess the symptomology of the body and compare and contrast whether we're having a health experience is because of homeostasis. Our bodies tend to keep the same temperature, 98.6, and other symptoms that remain in status quo. And when they're out of status quo, we know something is going on. And so last week I theorized, as I've already mentioned, that there might be a homeostasis of consciousness. And what I want to say about that before we start looking at the symptoms is that the homeostasis of consciousness is what our founder, Ernest Holmes, described as the God qualities, or the key concepts that are synonymous with God. They are love and peace and wholeness and harmony and abundance and joy and all wonderful qualities that traditions and people have used throughout the ages to speak of the divine, and that the natural state of our beingness, our homeostasis from a spiritual standpoint, is that. We are love in action. We are joy. We are abundance in action. But what we acknowledge is we don't always experience that. We don't always experience that homeostasis. And indeed, the homeostasis of each one of us from the standpoint of wholeness is that there is a huge degree of well-being that is flowing through us and through our life. But we miss it because most of us are experiencing low levels of consciousness flu all the time. Low levels of consciousness flu. And just as when we catch the physical flu, we have to then meet that symptomology and be proactive to lead ourselves back to our natural state of wellness. The symptomology of physical flu that we might know would be in place includes things like a fever, the rising of the heat of the physical body that indicates there's an imbalance there. And that's one of the quickest signs for a physical doctor that there's something going on in the body. Flu is not the only reason, but in our consciousness, I would equate having a fever in consciousness to experiencing habitual angry thoughts, habitual angry actions, temper tantrums, anger and judgment, pervasive thoughts towards other people and situations in our lives, anxiety, fear, these thoughts that are hot, that have heat, that are powerful and pervasive at times, are an indication that our consciousness has the flu, that we're experiencing the flu, just as when we get a physical fever, that's an important indication. Pain is one of the big ones. When physical flu is present, there's pain in the body. And for many of us in our lives, we've had pain. Indeed, I would say every human being that I have ever encountered has had some pain or another. We have this kind of strange fantasy at times that no one else has experienced pain like we have, right? And that our pain is different and deeper and special. But in reality, everyone has pain. Everyone has suffered to some degree or another, and the presence of pain is an indication that we're not in homeostasis. It's not that it's bad or wrong to have pain. We're not a bad person. We're not being punished. We haven't done something wrong. It's just that what it indicates is that there's something deeper going on to have emotional pain or loneliness, as Rocio said in that reading, or disconnect. To have pain, deep pain, is an invitation into healing, an invitation. It's feedback to us that there's an opportunity to grow and to heal. So fever, pain, and all sorts of interesting little symptoms like a sore throat, Sore throat to me is equivalent in the consciousness flu to being unwilling to speak one's truth, to be unwilling to be our authentic self. And some of us suffer for years with this low-level aspect of the consciousness flu, the unwillingness to have the courage to stand up and speak about who we are, to speak about the life we'd really choose to live, to tell people how we really feel, sometimes good, bad, or indifferent, to really be our authentic self. We find ourselves suffering from an inability to speak our light. And then lastly, just an overall dissatisfaction with our life is an indication of consciousness flu. Something doesn't feel right. I don't feel like I'm headed in the right direction. I'm not happy in my relationships. I'm not happy in my body. I'm not happy with the conditions of my life. This is not some tragedy. It is an invitation. These symptoms or any other symptoms that don't reflect wholeness and wellness and love and abundance are merely our consciousness saying, wake up, pay attention. There's work to be done. Now, before I go any further with this, I'm talking thus far about us personally. But I want to say, as I look out into the world, I find myself sometimes frustrated with and judgmental of other people who are clearly experiencing consciousness flu. When someone has the physical flu, and I know they have the physical flu, I don't spend time judging them or making them wrong. Well, they're such a jerk. They've got the flu. How could they have the flu? Jeez, what's wrong with them that they got the flu, right? But when I look out at other people and I see other people having any of this symptomology, and I'm tempted to say, what a jerk. I'm tempted to be judgmental. I'm tempted to separate myself from them. There's an invitation for me also to have compassion and understand that anyone that I see or experience, my own kids, my own spouse, someone I work with, a person here at church, a person out in the world, on TV, a celebrity, a politician, it doesn't matter. If that symptomology is present, here's what I believe. They have got the flu. And some of them got it bad, really, right? Some of them got a real bad case of it, a real high fever, a big sore throat. And when we have the flu, I absolutely know that there's something we can do to help ourselves feel better, both physically and from a consciousness perspective. Some people don't have the technology or the means to feel better. And we can allow ourselves to have compassion for people with the consciousness flu, for others also. I saw a sign yesterday in the window of a business that primarily does massages, and I loved the sign, and they're going to put it up here on treat your body like you live in it, right? I like that sign because it's an invitation into greater health. And my spin on it today as Dr. Michelle, treat your consciousness like you live in it. Treat your awareness like you live in it. See, the things that have established themselves in our consciousness may have been contributed to by the presence of other people. Certainly family and people we share our lives with and relationships and conflicts we've had. But what lives in our consciousness, what conclusions we've drawn from our experience, what decisions we've made based on our experience, those are all ours. They're ours to deal with. They're ours to heal. They're ours to smooth out. They're ours to take and make a better life for ourselves and others if we're willing to do that. So as your doctor today, I'm encouraging you, if you feel you have the consciousness flu, to do some things about it. And those things I'm equating to some of the things that we need to do when we have the physical flu. Some things that we have to pay attention to when we have the physical flu. The first one is non-resistance. For me, when I start feeling ill physically, I admit I'm tempted to just keep going. I am tempted to just push through. I am tempted to just say, I just have things to do, people to see, places to go. Part of that is because I have a great life. And as Reverend Josh mentioned in his series a couple weeks ago, I have a full life, a very full life, and I enjoy it tremendously, and I enjoy getting to participate in the things that I get to participate in. And when I did some more research on the internet, I found this new phrase that the experts are saying some of us are suffering from, a symptom maybe of consciousness flu, and it's called FOMO, F-O-M-O, fear of missing out. And they say it's the pervasive apprehension that others might be having rewarding experiences from which one is absent. The social anxiety is characterized by a desire to stay continually connected to what others are doing. So we're wanting to see what people are doing on their social media. We're wanting to see what they're doing on their Twitter, what they're doing on their Insta. We want to know because we don't want to miss out. And some of us, when it comes to being physically ill or when we know we've got some personal work to do, we don't become willing to do it because we might be missing out. Because just like when we get the physical flu, it helps us tremendously to step out of the busyness of our life. There's some wisdom to that when we have the consciousness flu too. On the internet, they also talk about having good flu manners. That means that if we have a physical flu, for our sake and the sake of people we share our lives with, such that we are not contagious to them and give them the flu, we step out. We step back. We take time to rest. We step away so that we don't pass the virus on. And the same can be said for consciousness flu. For our sake and the sake of the people we share our lives with, sometimes when we start experiencing the symptoms of this flu, it's an invitation to have a little more personal time so that we can assess what's going on and so that we don't become a contagion of our negativity. Have you ever experienced that someone else is a contagion of negativity or you yourself are a contagion of negativity? And so it's important because if we don't step back and become willing to take a look at what's going on, then what happens, what's potentially available is that we say something we regret. We act in a way that we regret. We are not as kind, generous, supportive as we would like to be in our relationships. We're moody or disconnected or even outright rude, often to the people we care for the most, right? They will be the ones who will experience that, our flu. And so we can sometimes sabotage things that we love and relationships that we love and opportunities because we haven't been willing to deal with the symptoms of our flu. We haven't been willing to deal with our fever. We haven't been willing to deal with our pain. We haven't been willing to deal with the stuff that's living in our consciousness that we know is a part of that. Bless you, whoever sneezed down there. I hope you're not catching the flu. So when I have the flu, I accept that I have it, and I take some extra special time to be still, to care for myself, to be compassionate, and do this diligently. And with this consciousness flu, sometimes it gets compounded, our resistance gets compounded because we fall into a shame spiral, unlike we ever would if we caught the physical flu. And we make it worse because we say to ourselves, I shouldn't be having this. I shouldn't be this angry. I shouldn't be this frustrated. I shouldn't be having these challenges. What is wrong with me? Something is wrong with me. And then we get into all sorts of catastrophizing, just as if I've sometimes made my experience of physical illness worse by researching on the internet, right? Have a couple sniffles and go online and come out, I'm dying. I've got snephalockawakawus or whatever it might be that I came up across. Get really dramatic. And so we might be a little bit more dramatic about it and find ourselves more challenged because we're certain. That would be similar to someone, having an experience of a love relationship breaking down and then saying, I'm damaged goods, I will never love again. And very dramatic. That's the flu. That's the consciousness flu. Right there. That's one symptom of it. And so we compound it by not being willing to stop. We're resistant to stopping and saying, I need to deal with these symptoms so that I can get back to focusing on my health and well-being. Just like when we deal with our physical flu, that brings us back to abundant physical health. When we become someone who's willing to take our symptomology of our consciousness flu and work on it and heal it and be with it and help ourselves get back to homeostasis, then we can more easily and effortlessly be able to see and experience the dreams and desires and the good that lives at the core of us. There's a wonderful metaphysical author named Neville Goddard. And I've brought a quote from him today that my friend James gave me, and I just love it. Goddard says, if we would become as emotionally aroused over our ideals as we become over our dislikes, we would ascend to the plane of our ideal as easily as we now descend to the level of our hates. So what it requires of us, if we've got the consciousness flu, it's sometimes really hard to see beyond what we hate or dislike about ourselves or our life or our current situation. And so we get caught up in it and it becomes our reality. To enter into this willingness to say, I need to stop being resistant to working on, why am I so angry all the time? I need to stop being so resistant and become willing to work on, how come I'm always so discouraged and how come I haven't been able to let go of this pain yet? It allows us to then turn our attention emotionally and every other way to building the life that we would like to build. So my first prescription for the consciousness flu is to consider deep, profound self-care. Extra time to withdraw from the world and really be with ourselves and really be with our symptomology in a way that is compassionate and loving, that allows us to say, it's time. It's time for me to be a healthier version of myself. And so I'm going to do what I need to do. But then the question becomes, just like in physical health, what the heck do I do? How do I get beyond it? And that requires of us guidance. We need guidance. All of us do. I know when I have the physical flu or some physical ailment, I'm constantly at battle with myself, at odds with myself about, okay, do I go to the allopathic doctor? Do I go to the naturopath? Do I go to my practitioner? Do I go to my shaman? Do I call my mommy? What do I do to help me feel better? And when we have the consciousness flu, sometimes we get caught up in the same questions. What do I do? Where do I go? How do I find guidance? I admit it. I have the consciousness flu. I am willing to be non-resistant. Now, how do I get rid of these symptoms? How do I get to this place of healing? And so sometimes it is a challenge to receive help because many of us have a mental equivalent about our lives that to ask for help, to get help, is a sign of weakness. And so our strategy up until now about having the consciousness flu might just be, buckle up, buttercup. Just keep going. Just keep going. Don't stop for anything. Just keep going. Don't be weak. Just be strong. And then that strength and that willingness to persist on, we do persist on, but we take all this symptomology with us and it becomes a part of the life that we build. And so the option is to stop and set it down. And so getting guidance and getting help can look like creating a list. Here's one prescription I offer. Create a list of people that we admire and we know love and support us. And when we need guidance to resolve something, that we get out our list and we consider who it is that we might want to call. I'm calling these people our primary consciousness care providers. And to have a list of primary consciousness care providers is very important. It might include your practitioner here at the church. It might include your best friend, your spouse, your partner. It might include a coworker. It might include a sibling or someone in your family. It could include anyone, and maybe certain people are used for different issues. But what I've noticed in my own life is that when I have a trusted person that I suddenly get really real with, and I tell them, here's what's going on. Here's what's really going on. I'm feeling so angry because this has occurred all my life, and I just am authentic and true, and I know that I need to get some support. Will you talk with me about options? And getting together with people who know me and know my history a lot of times is very helpful, because in the midst of being that frustrated, having the consciousness flu, just when I have the physical flu, my head is a little bit not on straight. I can be a little bit discombobulated. And when I've realized I've got the consciousness flu and I want to heal it, I can also be discombobulated. So to go to people who I can trust and say, I need to solve this, what ideas do you have? They can often remind me of things I've done in the past that have worked, that I can't remember in that moment. Oh yeah, I did get a lot of help by talking to so-and-so. Oh yeah, when I took that class, that really was an eye-awakening thing. And those are the things that are a huge part of the symptomology, or the possibilities for resolving the symptomology. Of course, there's talking to people, there's counselors and therapists and life coaches and practitioners and workshops and classes. Any problem that you or I have, there are solutions for us in our world today. So don't for 1 minute pause to think, well, no one can help me solve what I've got going on. That's just your flu talking right there. That is not your wholeness talking. There are solutions. There are opportunities. There are ways. But we sometimes need guidance to help ourselves take hold of and find the things that will support us, that will serve us, that will allow us to move forward. And in addition to the people, the list, the primary consciousness care providers, always keep in mind that you and I have a perfect guidance system within us. And by having non-resistance and becoming willing to go within just for a little bit more in our lives and do more spiritual practice or more reflection or just quiet time in nature and seeking out that guidance, there is something in us that can rise to the surface and can tell us the highest and the best methodologies and steps that we can be taking. And sometimes I think that one of the greatest challenges for humans is that we've discounted our inner guidance system. We've forgotten it's there. We don't even use it. It's like having a GPS in your phone or your car and never using it, and then finding yourself lost all the time. And then thinking, gosh, wouldn't it be nice if they could create something that could help us find our way around? And so some of us are wandering through our lives in our consciousness. Wouldn't it be nice if someone could create a way for me to be healed of this pain? Well, they have. They absolutely have. There are opportunities and solutions, and your inner guidance and my inner guidance is poised to guide us on our unique pathway that can support and sustain us the most. And so that's the next prescription. Let yourself be guided. And lastly, it helps tremendously if you have taken yourself out of the hubbub of life, even for the littlest bit, to understand that a huge part of the healing of consciousness flu and the healing of what ails us can always be met with the light that Lauren was singing about. The light to feel it, to sense it, to imagine light, white light, light of wholeness, infusing our cells, our physical body, our mind, our consciousness. To imagine, that's a huge part of what opens us up to the guidance, because that is our homeostasis. We are light. We are guided. We are love in action. We are met with the greatest possibilities that we could ever imagine for whatever healing will bring us into wholeness. And by being willing to be present to that light more and more and more, we have an opportunity to step forward. And while we are dealing with the symptomology, bring into our lives the light that we truly are. So, thus ends our appointment for today. I urge you to fill these prescriptions in the pharmacy of your life, and I'd like to have a follow-up visit in the future, like maybe a week from today.